going on with the thing the other day, and it's like really bizarre because I couldn't figure out why there was an issue with it. But it turned out to be a very, very strange thing, and it just goes to show you that the program, even though it has some limited intelligence in telling you what is going wrong, you're not necessarily guaranteed to find it. And so, what happened was, let's see if I can find it. I'm not even able to find it. What happened was I spelled columns when I was setting the columns to column width. Column dot column width is equal to 15. I misspelled column. I didn't have an N in there or something like that, and as a result, the whole program crashed. And so it came up and said that there was a problem with the main form, and I don't really think the problem may not have been in the main form, but what was happening was that was causing the whole thing to come to a screeching halt. Okay, so sometimes you encounter a situation like that, and I think over the years I have encountered this one here. Okay, it wasn't, I think I missed an M or an N or something like that, and it made the whole thing come to a screeching halt. I think there have been isolated occasions where I have looked at something and it was like perfect, absolutely perfect, and I could never figure out what the problem was, and I closed the application and opened it back up again and it worked. Okay, so it's also possible that something you might encounter something really bizarre like that, but it's not likely. But anyway, so by misspelling this thing, it prevented the form from loading properly, which probably should have been included those into there to see if there's something else going on. All right, so for our application, okay, we were here, and what we want to do is we want to add some intelligence to this thing, make the program user-friendly. And there's two ways of doing it. One way is by trying to insulate the user from making a mistake as much as possible, and that was where we were enabling and disabling the buttons here according to what was possible. Okay, so you should always be able to, once you have a valid data set, you should always be able to enter an arrival, but you should only be able to start a service on two conditions. What's one condition?
Somebody's already arrived?
Yeah, I have to have an arrival, right? Okay, that's one. What's the other one? If you've only got one person serving, okay, and they can only handle one person, you don't want a service to be able to start if they're already serving somebody. Okay? Alright, so then another situation is, so once you start a service, okay, then you can't start another service, but you can, if you have a service that's active, okay, you can start a service end. Okay? So the sequencing, the logic behind making sure which one of these things are good has to change. Okay, now let's say you have one person in the system, and you just finished a service end. Okay? If there's nobody else in the system, right, you can't start a service because no one's arrived yet. So what we're going to attempt to do today is we're going to attempt to add additional code in here to try to control what is possible. So that's one way of doing it. The other way of doing it is that you allow a person to think that they can do anything. Okay, so even if there's nobody in the system, you allow them to think that they can start a service or they can end a service, and then in order to prevent them from actually doing that, you can have like an error message come up and say, hey, I can't start a service because there's nobody in the system, or I can't start another service because the server's busy, or I can't end a service because a service is not started yet. Okay, so there's two ways of doing that, and there's a thing called message box, which is also very good for debugging because it's easy to find out what your values are, and so I use a lot of message boxes to tell myself easily tell myself what's going on. Okay, all right, so let's go ahead and try to mess with the buttons here, and this may require a little bit of putzing around. Every time I do this, if I do this 10 times, I probably do it slightly differently 10 times. So we'll see how this goes. All right, so I'm going to stop this. Okay, and in order to add in some little logic here, one of the things that I need to do is I need to add in some global variables. And so, of course, to add in the global variables, I need to go to my module, and I'm going to add in, I'm going to try adding in at least 3 global variables, and as time goes on, we're going to be adding in more, but I think I can get away with only having 3. So I'm going to have one, and it's going to be called ARR total as integer, and that's going to give me the total number of arrivals, and I'm going to use global service start total, service start total as integer, and then I'm going to do global service end total as integer. Okay, so by comparing the values in each one of these different things, I'm going to be able to determine whether or not my situation is feasible. Okay. All right. So now what I'm ready to do is I'm ready to go over here to look at some of my code. And what I want to do is I want to first we're going to use again the philosophy, the divide and conquer philosophy. And so we're going to do it piece by piece, and then we'll make it more intelligent as time goes on here. Okay, so one of the first things I need to do is, okay, so if they've successfully pushed the arrival button, then we need to increment that. So ARR total is equal to ARR total plus 1. Remember, don't misspell your thing, otherwise you're going to have a problem. Okay, all right, so this is going to increment my, my variable every time this happens. And so just not so I don't get anything confused, okay, it would be a really good idea to also initialize that. Whoops, I'm in the wrong one. So when I'm initializing this other stuff, I should probably initialize that too. And then I should do the other two. Alright, so now I'm ready to get back to where I was at, and I was looking at this thing here. So if I wanted to push the arrival button, why does this have all this in here already? I'm going to wipe it all out. Okay, memorize that. I make a mistake. Oh, no, that was what we needed. I'm losing my mind. Okay. No, that's what we wanted to do. Want this one. Okay, oh, why is all that stuff in there? Okay, all right. So we want to start the service thing here, and the first assumption I'm going to make is that my program has already have the built-in intelligence that I can't do this. I can't activate that thing unless it's actually a valid condition. So I'm going to assume that. And so I'm going to go through with my stuff here, similar format of what I did before, and so we'll jump around a little bit. Okay, all right. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this to find an empty space. Okay. And then I've got a bunch of other variables that I need. Okay, so I'm not dealing with the top row again anymore. So my cur row is going to be equal to 11, and my cur column is going to be equal to 1 plus. Actually, it's not going to be equal to 1 plus. It's going to be equal to what? 3 plus 5 times data set total minus 1, oops, minus 1. Okay, so what this is going to do, it's going to stick me in the correct, across the sheet, it's going to stick me in the correct row for putting in the service start time. Okay, so at that point I should be in the starting point. And then I have my usual thing, okay, is this an empty cell? Okay, so if cells per row per column is equal to nothing, then do this, and again, put in an end if, indent, and put an end if right away, and then you can put in an else there. You can say has data. Okay, and if it doesn't have data, then what we're going to do is we're going to go to the next row, plus 1. Okay, so we're going to increment to the next row and go around. On the other hand, if we did find it, among other things, we want to jump out of the loop, so done is going to be equal to 1. We should indent. And we want to put the time spot in there, so cells per row per column is equal to time. Okay, now, since we've started a service, what can we do? Can we end the service? Okay, so okay is equal to true. Okay, now, can we do anything else, or should we do anything else? Okay, can we have another service start? What are our two conditions? There has to be somebody waiting, okay, in the queue to get service, and that's one thing. So if ARR total is what? Greater than then you can do something. Does that sound like good logic? If you have more people that arrive than you've had for service starts, okay, then you can do that. Okay, but you are serving somebody right now. So if you're serving somebody right now, then you can't really serve anybody, can you? Because you're busy. Okay, so should we really have that in there? Should we have that in there? No. I don't think so. We're going to save this. We're going to save this for. We're going to save this for the service end. Okay. All right. So we enable the service end button. Okay. We don't really know what to do with the service start button yet. But to be safe, okay, what we should do is this. We should do what with it? Because, okay, we're actually serving somebody right now. Okay, so if we're serving somebody right now, and we don't know how long it's going to be, we should probably turn it off. Okay. All right. So is that going to do it? We already incremented it. We didn't increment it yet, did we? Are we happy with this? Is this going to work? Find out in 5 seconds here. I should probably save this. Every time you do something new, you should be saving it, so you should really save it to something else.